Hey, real quick, if you're watching this video on the day that it comes out, then I am currently live streaming for charity. It's part of Operation Reindeer, organized by my friend Icy Richard. No, not that Richard. We're raising money for Save the Children. I'm playing Pokemon White, but I've randomized it so much that basically every Pokemon is a regional variant of itself. It's a Nuzlocke challenge run with permadeath, and your donations can change the rules of the game in real time. I'm streaming literally all day until the game is done, so come on over now or when you're finished with this. And anyway, let's get on with the video. Hey everyone, my name's Charlie. I am a mechanical engineer, and I'm on a quest to create a real-life Springlock suit from Five Nights at Freddy's. In a way that's not stupid. In part 1 of this series, I took you through an authentic requirements design review, and created a roadmap for this project that hopefully won't end with me haunting several pizzerias in a coffin of my own design and being burned alive several times. Hopefully. But we're still far from needing to worry about any of that. Today, we're moving on to phase 2 of the engineering design process. The Conceptual Design Review. I've got 4 possible designs, and we're gonna run each of them through a gauntlet of rigor and diligence to figure out which one is objectively the best. That's right, it's time to leave the realm of the theoretical behind and actually design a better Springlock suit. Richard, hit that intro. If you haven't seen the last episode yet, you probably should, because we spent a lot of time laying out our 7 requirements and defining exactly how we're going to measure them. So I'm not going to retread all that ground again. But I did ask for your feedback on a few things that we should go over now. The first problem I had was measuring accuracy in an objective way. We want our end product to at least somewhat resemble the suits from the game, or else it would kind of defeat the whole point, but I couldn't think of a great way to measure it objectively without just saying, yeah, that seems similar enough. But I've come up with a good solution. You're gonna say, yeah, that seems similar enough. After all, the whole point of this project is to make something that seems cool. We're not trying to open a real pizzeria here. It's an inherently subjective requirement. So it seems fair that the subjectivity should come from you. So in the description, I've included another Google form. All you need to do is rank how satisfied you would be with each design on a scale from 1 to 5, based purely on vibes. You don't need to show any concern for my safety or my wallet. Trust me, I got that part covered. I want to know which one you'd see in a thumbnail and think, oh hell yeah. The second thing I asked you all last time was what a reasonable weight might be. And I actually got a very cool answer from a place I did not expect. Apparently, a couple of you are medieval history enthusiasts and pointed out that a suit of metal armor might be a good analogy for the weight. You guys let me know that a full suit of plate armor can weigh around 50 pounds or 23 kilograms, which sounds super heavy. But if you distribute that weight properly across the shoulders, torso, and hips, it actually feels super wearable. So as long as we design it right, we should be able to have a suit that weighs upwards of 50, maybe 60 pounds. A Springlock suit is apparently just a full animatronic with a few extra mechanisms attached to it, meaning it would probably weigh around the same, if not a little more, than a real animatronic from something like Chuck E. Cheese. A mere 450 pounds? Oh. Okay, so making something like that light enough to be worn seems kind of impossible, but hey, according to the very inaccurate lore, William was either jacked out of his mind or someone figured out how to make these things light enough. So I guess I'll just have to trust them on this one. So with those two figured out, we have everything we need to complete the second part of this process, the decision matrix. This is a tool that engineers use to objectively compare different possible designs against the requirements to see which one objectively yields the best odds of success. And longtime viewers of the channel may have noticed that I sort of already did this part before in this older video. Of course, that time I had fewer requirements and totally different design concepts, and my main goal was really to prove why you shouldn't build a Springlock suit before I went ahead and started building a real one. It's a pretty simple process. You basically just list your requirements across the top, different designs down the side, fill in all the data, and then do some spreadsheet magic to get a final score for each design out of 10. Whichever one has the highest score wins. In the interest of time, I went ahead and filled in all the data myself, but if you're interested in learning things like how to estimate cost without a final parts list, or the in-depth process of evaluating safety and ensuring your mascot costume never crushes all your bones and vital organs, no matter how old or wet the parts are, you should give this video a watch. And the last step is to define our weights, which are a measure of how important each requirement is. In the last episode, I asked you to rank each of these requirements on a scale from 1 to 5 in order of importance. And here's what you all came up with. Safety was the most important, good on ya, followed by mobility, then reliability, then accuracy, weight, cost, and finally, transition time. Now, I could just use these as our final weights, and it's not like I don't trust you all or anything, it's just that, well, I don't really trust you. So I've decided to take the Game Awards approach and base the weights on 50% community vote and 50% my weights. Look, I see your good intentions, but I got a couple of objections. So first, I decided to bump down mobility and weight. Like we learned earlier, as long as the weight is distributed properly, our suit can be quite heavy and still relatively easy to wear. Mobility was a tough one. In the games, these animatronics have fully articulated arms, legs, even fingers. And I'll be honest, making all of this work in a Springlock suit is just not gonna happen. And to be honest, it's probably not necessary. As a few of you suggested in the comments, it probably makes more sense to just ditch the robotic hands and just tape a microphone in there in animatronic mode. And the legs don't need to be motorized either. This is the 80s. You're not making a walking bipedal robot. So while these features are nice to have, as long as the arms move, you're probably good enough. And while we're on the subject, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room. A lot of movies, video games, and basically every piece of media about engineering written by non-engineers, which again is all of them, which have you believe that low cost will always come at the expense of safety. But that's just not true. Expensive things can be dangerous, cheap things can be really safe, and vice versa. That's why they're two separate categories. And look, as the guy who's gonna foot the bill for this, I'm putting cost higher up on the list. Now, I promise I won't cut costs in stupid ways, but I'm also not gonna throw money at things that I really don't have to. And hey, this is also the part of the video where I mentioned that I have a Patreon, link in the description down below, help me out. So these are our final updated weights. The last step is to multiply each standardized score by its weight and add them all up to get a final score for each design out of 10. So now that we know how this all works, let's get on to the fun part and actually design some Springlock suits. If you remember from the last episode, one big problem with the Springlock suits is the changing pivot point. If you pull the bones to the outside of the arm instead of the middle, then when the arm bends, these bones will need to cover more distance to still attach on either side. Last time I proposed potentially using telescoping bones that can dynamically change their length as the arm moves. The problem is that moving bones don't make very good bones, and could compromise the structural integrity of the suit in animatronic mode. However, you all came up with the perfect solution to this little problem. Just add more spring locks. Okay, I know that sounds completely deranged, but I promise there's an actual logic here. The bones would function similarly to the leg of a crutch. While in suit mode, the bones can freely slide and adjust to the right length so that you can move around. When you want to go to animatronic mode, you push the bones in and use the spring locks to hold them in place. At the same time, another set of spring locks pushes pins into preset holes in the animatronic bones to stop them from sliding around. And of course, we'll use tension springs instead of compression ones, so everything is locked in animatronic mode, and when you disengage the locks, everything moves away from the middle instead of towards all your vital organs and bones. And you know we here at the Chiptide love us some intact bones. In your body, I don't need your bones. I really like this idea, and based on all your comments last time, you do too. There's just one little problem with it we still need to address. Turns out, it sucks real bad. Sure, this addresses the mobility issue with the regular Springlock suits a little bit, though you'd probably still need to sacrifice some of the mobility in the hands and legs to keep the cost and complexity from just skyrocketing. And yes, it probably would look absolutely sick with spring locks firing in all directions and metal sliding around me like I'm Tony Stark. But that's just about all the upsides it's got. I've already talked about how a real game-accurate spring lock suit would be way more expensive than you think. And this is basically just that with even more spring locks and twice the bones. And beyond just cost, this design also introduces a lot of new safety concerns. If the bones seize up while someone's inside, it'll severely limit their mobility and potentially ability to get out of it. There's a chance that the pins won't line up correctly, causing the bones to come loose while performing. The pins could rattle around and potentially harm the person inside if the springs holding them back aren't strong enough. And if the bones are growing and shrinking, you'll need to include extra long electrical wires to move along with it, which could get caught or damaged in some moving part, and having an exposed wire and an enclosed, mostly cloth suit with a person inside adds a risk for fire or electrocution. Speaking from the perspective of the person who's gonna be inside, I would very much like to avoid that. Not to mention the simple fact that having a bunch of heavy, potentially sharp metal parts around your bare skin isn't a place you want them to be. Sure, there are ways to mitigate all of these. You could include warning lights when it's connected to power, oversized pinholes, and beveled edges so it's easier for the pins to slide into place, and regularly inspect all the parts for damages. And hey, I mean, it's not going to snap you like a mousetrap, but I feel like that's a pretty low bar. In the end, despite the tension springs and the added mobility, this design wasn't much better than the regular suits from the game. And you know what? I'm glad it sucks, because it perfectly demonstrates why we go through this whole process to begin with. Sure, on paper, this design sounds great, and had I not gone through all of this, I probably would have ended up inside one of these before realizing, oh, I'm in danger. So, we're probably not going with that one. Let's see what else we got here. Another idea is designing the endoskeleton to come out of the suit completely. Attach tension spring locks to the endoskeleton and build a thin metal frame to the inside of the suit that they can slot into. This will hold the suit in place while in animatronic mode. And if you want to switch, release the locks, pull the whole animatronic out, leaving you with just a regular mascot costume. Major upside here, this design completely solves our weight issue. Doesn't matter how heavy the endoskeleton is, because it's all coming out with you, so you don't have to wear all that heavy metal around. It's also far safer because, well, you don't have to wear all that heavy metal around. This one sounds great, but remember, the job of an engineer is to always look deeper. And while the grass is definitely greener over here, it's not perfect. Pulling the whole endoskeleton out and then putting the suit on would probably take significantly longer than the other designs where you just pull everything open and hop on in. And not to mention, getting the endo back in when you want to go back to animatronic mode could prove very challenging. You'd probably need some sort of aligning feature to make sure that all the spring locks properly engage, which will make it more complex than it seems on the surface. And, I mean, like, not most importantly, but still importantly for this project, it's kind of lame. Like, can you imagine if the final video was me like, hey, here I am in a regular old mascot costume that I stole from a high school. All the cool stuff is just kind of on the floor in the corner over there. And hey, if I had to choose between that and this, I'll do it. But we still have one more option. This was probably the most popular suggestion that I saw in the comments. Ditch the endoskeleton altogether and use an exoskeleton instead. Basically use big hollow bones that you can fit your arm inside to provide the support for the animatronic. And then you don't have to worry about moving anything out of the way. Attach some motors to the outside of these joints, and you're in business. And hey, fun fact, this is actually exactly what the Disney Imagineers did when they needed to create extra large mascot costumes for their parks with mechanized components. Check out this video if you want to learn more. This design sounds great, except for the slight issue that it doesn't involve any springs. So it's hardly a Springlock suit. And I don't want to just include springs for the sake of including them, like, oh, I don't know, a bunch of ribs that serve no other function aside from stabbing into Shaggy. Well, fear not, for I may have not only found a reason to include springs, but one where a real Springlock is actually objectively the best possible solution. And it all has to do with a little problem that I haven't talked about much yet. Motors. See, motors are designed to apply a rotational force to a shaft that can move a load. That's how normal animatronics work. Motors use electrical energy to turn a shaft, which moves the arm. But if you're wearing the suit and powering it with your body, then you have to drive them the other way around. You move your limb, which turns the shaft, and therefore the motor. Now this is technically possible. I actually managed to find a real little tiny servo motor here. You can see you can physically turn it yourself if you want. But it's not great for the motor, you risk breaking something, and it requires extra force to do. So ideally, you would want a way to disengage the motors when in suit mode and re-engage them in animatronic mode, so you don't have to fight them to move around. And it turns out there's a very simple solution to this problem. It's called a clutch, by the way. I forgot to explicitly say that in the recording. You know, like that third weird pedal in those cars you don't know how to drive? That thing. A quick little engineering lesson. The motor in your car actually has a relatively narrow speed range it can turn the shaft, much narrower than you would need to drive. So it includes a transmission that can connect the shaft to a variety of gears, giving you more speed or power depending on what you need. However, changing gears while the shaft is turning is very dangerous. So you want a way to stop the main shaft without shutting your engine off, because that will be annoying. And that's where a clutch comes in. Basically a big flat disc with a high friction material on it. Rather than running the shaft from the motor directly into the transmission, the engine connects to a flywheel that the clutch rests on. The friction between them causes the clutch to rotate with the flywheel, and the shaft of the transmission is attached to that. When you want to change gears, you press down on the clutch pedal to pull this clutch back. Since it's no longer touching the flywheel, it will stop spinning, allow you to safely change gears. When you release the clutch, a series of springs push it back into place, re-engaging the shaft. Now obviously we don't need to worry about changing gears or anything like that, so we can actually lose most of this. But we can use a modified clutch to engage and disengage the motors. Put a motor with a small flywheel on one side of the joint and a clutch on the other. Now just like with the other designs, we're going to want to use tension springs here so that things are pulled away and not towards you. Push the clutch into contact with the motor, lock the springs in place, and you got yourself an animatronic. When you want to go to suit mode, release the locks, the clutch is pulled away, and you got yourself a free moving suit. This design is going to have a lot less moving parts than something like the telescoping rod design. It's very fast to switch between modes, and it should have no mobility issues because the pivot point is never changing. The more complex exoskeleton might be a little heavier, and it could be a bit more expensive, but it's also comparatively quite safe. Yes, you do need to worry about having a motor and a moving clutch close to your arm, but you could build in some sort of physical barrier to protect you. There's also a chance that the clutch fails and the motors disengage, but this would be when the suit is in animatronic mode. Unfortunate, yes, you might leave a bunch of kids with some serious trauma as they watch Freddy have a heart attack on stage, but hey, at least no real person is gonna be inside of it. And hey, before you leave a comment saying, oh, see, Edwin really was smart and did create a better version of the Springlock suits this whole time. No, alright, his still suck for other reasons, and ours aren't going to resemble these walking, like, mechs, alright? We're following the famous engineering KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. Don't do that. Why'd you do, what's with the gun? But, while I might like this design the best, my opinion doesn't matter here. Let's see what the decision matrix has to say. Remember, the design with the highest score is objectively the best one. So plug in all the data, crunch the numbers, and oh, what's this? The winner was a mysterious fifth option, a very complicated and rare mechanical device called a zipper? Just unzip the costume from the animatronic frame, take it off, and put it on yourself, giving you a perfectly identical costume with all the same ketchup stains, no deadly springs or expensive over-engineering required? Huh? Who could have possibly guessed? Could it be the guy telling everyone that they should just do this for the past 2 years or something? But of the real Springlock designs, a completely game-accurate suit and the one with the telescoping bones were both trash, so we're tossing them out, forget about them, bam, not a factor. But the other two, the removable endoskeleton and the exoskeleton with clutch, were just about tied. Which means that this one is up to all of you. Because of course, the one bit of data that I couldn't include yet was your satisfaction with the accuracy. And so, I leave my fate in your hands, and in the Google form in the description down below. And of course, hit that subscribe button, because the next part is the detailed design review, where we go full Tony Stark montage and start making this thing for real. Oh, and don't forget, I'm still currently live on this channel raising money for charity, because unlike the real William, I don't want to murder children. Which again, really should not be the bar here. And of course, a massive thank you to all my supporters on Patreon, including Alex, Alakazam, Big Dog Ty for the win, Captain Kirby, Sidian, Sherry and Mark, Stylish, The Boss Killer 94, Ty Studio, and Moki Ubu.